Hello. So this is a response to the video you made to Greytex, who I'm really looking forward to see his response, because I don't know, I just think you don't know him that well, which is not a big deal, but some of the things you said I just don't see Greytex doing. But let's go into some of the things you did say, because I think this is an interesting a few things you brought up that I thought were very interesting. Let me explain where I came from. I came from a working class neighborhood. Now my dad graduated from college, so he had a degree, but everybody around us didn't, pretty much for the most part, had trades, which is nothing wrong with that, of course, and that's what I'm doing today. So let me explain to you my generation, which is probably not too far from your generation, but I think you're a little older than me. So, I was growing up in the 80s, born in 70, and so the neighborhood I grew up was, like I said, working class, and the guy across the street worked for couple of steel companies. Another guy across the street was an electrician. The next door neighbor, they were all like hard hat type people, and they made pretty decent livings. So, growing up in that environment, you got the false sense that those things, as a kid now, just, think about this. As a kid, you got the false sense of thinking that these things would go on forever. You didn't realize, you didn't have the foresight to see industries or the blue collar worker jobs shrinking, or let's just say, for instance, in Michigan, the big three are drastically cutting benefits and drastically cutting the labor force and shutting down plants all across the country. So you didn't see this when I was growing up. America was the greatest country in the world and the strongest economy, which it was at the time. Of course, Japan was pumping in their Toyotas and the rice burners, as they called them back then, and they always did beat us to the punch on what the American public wanted. So my point is that this whole economy we have today, sort of caught a lot of us off guard. Sure, we'd heard that, you got to know stuff about computers or you'll be left behind and things like this. But as far as, I figured I don't go to college, then I don't go to college. If I'm not, that bright, or if I don't feel like I am going in that direction for going to a university, or I didn't feel like I was cutting the mustard with my grades, well, I could always do something else. I could always do a blue collar job and make a decent living. But the fact of the matter is that's not really, those jobs aren't as plentiful as they were before. And the difference between the working class today and the upper middle class and the rich, is huge. There's a lot less of that working class that is making a decent living. I'm making a decent living. I really lucked out. That's all I can tell you. And I was one of those guys who, I did go to the military, and every decision I made happened to be right. But believe me, this was not a plan. I am doing what I wanted to do a long time ago when I set my goals, loosely set my goals, but I got there in a roundabout way. I really did. I really am fortunate that I got to do what I wanted to do, because when I joined the military, I was not doing that job, and now I am. And eventually I cross-trained. But believe me, most of these decisions were not something that was calculated. They were just really, um, you know, I don't like where I'm at right now. Let me do this type thing. So that's just a little bit of my background. I don't want to take up too much. I've already taken up half the time. Okay, so I'm going to get on to some of the things you were talking about. Military is a good thing, but I wouldn't suggest, well, let's just put it this way. I wouldn't make it a career. I spent about 5 years longer than I should have. But, you know, and I shouldn't say that. Actually, everything I did worked out for me. So the 5 years was actually a good experience. But I wouldn't suggest it. I would suggest get your skill and head on out. Get your college money if you're going to go to college. Secondly, let's talk about socialized medicine a little bit. I'm going to try to speed up here, or I may have to speed up my video if I go over 10 minutes. Socialized medicine, or you're talking about socialism, but I'm going to talk about socialized medicine. Uh, it's not free. That's the misconception. Socialized medicine is not free. Very high taxes paid. Very high taxes are paid for coverage for everybody. So I don't have a problem with socialized medicine. I mean, I would even go for a mix. Some private, some social. Of course, the private's going to be for the rich, obviously, but at least have coverage for everybody, because I think that's just basic being humane. That's just basic. You know, that would be the least we should do for everybody. But it's not free. It's high taxes. And see, here we have insurance, which is, everything's for profit, so that's fine. But insurance determining what they think is the right decision for your doctor to make in some occasions. And the thing is, people say, oh, well, I have insurance. So if you're lucky enough to be with a company that pays pays a part of your, if you get paid bi-weekly like I do, pays bi-weekly some of your insurance, and then you pay. Okay, so the insurance is obviously making money. And then every time you go to the doctor, most of the insurance companies require a co-payment. And so in essence, we're paying taxes for our private insurance. But the difference is that not everybody has a company that will pay the portion, because believe it, I mean, I wouldn't be able to afford insurance if it wasn't for the job I had that is helping, that is offsetting the cost, basically. Okay, so that's one thing. I think there's some answer in there. I mean, now, as far as the kids, you said you don't understand. Maybe the kids were in Great Texas situation. They're feeling hopeless. Well, I really believe, because I know I didn't, they just don't understand. They don't know what our grandparents went through. They don't realize that everything can be taken away in a blink of an eye. And yeah, things are going good today, but you may be poor tomorrow. Listen, this country, it's a lot easier, and not to say it's easy, but it's a lot easier to get to the top than to stay at the top. Because what happens is, once you're at the top, once the generations previous worked their tails off, and situation was right for them to prosper, once you get down to that next couple of generations, well, then it's just always been that way, and it's always going to be that way in the minds of that next generation, next two generations. And so, let's get a radio in our car that makes a lot of noise. Let's get our hydraulics and our rims, our Xbox 360s, our gold teeth, our whatever, whatever the fashion is. And so, so that's what I think. I think that they just don't understand. They don't understand what it takes. Anyway, let me cut this out because I'm out of time. Hopefully I'll get a response or something, and we can continue this conversation. Peace.